Good afternoon, good afternoon. Happy Saturday to one and to all. Perhaps it is Sunday, depending upon where you are on the globe. And we are back for another edition of Adult Conversations with Cynda Family and Friends, where we'll be discussing today adult parenting and then the community, the town in Arkansas, who would like it to remain one color. So, without further delay, my beautiful host, Miss Cynda Williams, family and friends.
Hello, everybody. It's so nice to see you guys again. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to those who will be watching later. Glad to see you all. Right now, we're all ladies. James is somewhere around there. He'll be coming back soon. But Renee, you're new to our crew here, so why don't you introduce yourself to everyone?
Well, my name is Renee Wilson. I was born and raised in the Bronx, New York, and I've been in Jersey now for going on 26 years. I do have two adult children that just graduated college, Hampton and Spelman. And I met Cynda through a very good neighbor across the street, best neighbor in the world. His name is James. And I'm happy to be here. I've been married to a firefighter. He just retired last year after 30 years in Inglewood. And I work for the city of Inglewood. I have a Mary Kay business. I'm a sales director with them. I love people. I love conversations. And then I always have conversations when she comes. So I thank you for the invitation. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Leese, are you hearing the breakups? Do you hear or is that just me? It's like I can't.
Bubbles or something.
Yeah, there's some kind of background noise, and I know that it's breaking up the sound. Do you guys hear me fully?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe it's just me. Well, I was going to say, Alicia and James, introduce yourself, but you went away. So, hello, come back.
Hello.
We're on a show. It's live.
Yeah, we're back.
Hi, James.
Hey.
Hi, as I call him, King. That's my uncle. Y'all know James. And just in case there's somebody that doesn't know you, can you please introduce yourselves?
My name is James Williams.
Tell us a little tiny bit of your background, please.
I am a mental health provider and a creative person. How's that?
That's so succinct. I love it. And Alicia, are you joining us? Or are you just there? Are you going to talk?
Here we are trying to kind of fit together into the small window. Hello, thank you for inviting me. So my name is Alicia Brownstein. It's easy, Brownstein, Cindy. And I am, as Cindy said, kind of a different shade of pale, right? Different shade of white. I'm a Polish by birth. I have been living here in the U.S. for 25 years, but I came to this country when I was 30. So I came of age in different circumstances. I'm a historian by training and also a psychotherapist, mental health provider. So I'm very much looking forward to the topic of today's conversation.
All right. Thank you. We love having such a variety of gifts amongst us. We might have a person or two join us. Shaq Edwards, I think, might, and then DJ King, is it DJ King? Is that right? He might join us, but we're going to go on and get started. So first we want to dive in on the topic of parenting adults. That's it. Parenting adults. I personally have an adult child, and I am really learning from my perspective that it doesn't end. I think that when I think of my parents, they came up in a different time. And so we kind of were thrown out, get to work, go do your thing. I never lived with my parents beyond, I moved out when I was 19. And never really went back. But, of course, as people that would guide me and things like that, they definitely were there for me. But it was a different world when I first became an adult than it is now. It's just very, very different. And so my experience, my daughter left when she was 18. When she had just turned 18, she left. And I think that's not typical today. I think that's not typical. But I've been recently finding out that I wish I had continued being as proactive as a parent now as I was before, because there are some things that I thought she understood and knew that she doesn't. So I'm still on a learning curve when it comes to being a parent to an adult child in this day and age, with all of the differences than it was just 30 something years ago. This is a different world. But does everybody here have adult children? I know you do, James. And
Very adult children.
very adult. Yeah, just
Grandchildren.
Adult grandchildren.
yeah, that's right. You have adult grandchildren, so you have 3 different groups to see the differences in.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just had a granddaughter got married.
Yes. Yeah. She was very good. She's beautiful.
Congratulations.
I'm prejudiced. She's beautiful.
Right. Alicia, I know you have one son, but he's not quite an adult, right?
No, he is not. But I would say that I will be very, very happy to bring up my clinical experience and the stories which I hear from people.
Okay, great.
Right.
So
because it's a very important topic. And yeah, so I would say that, I'm not going to use my personal experience, my clinical experience, if that makes sense.
no, that's appreciated. Renee, I know you have adult children, right?
Yes, I have 2. 24. My son's about to be 25 on 9/11, and my daughter's going to be 23 on November 25th.
Wow. Okay. Do you have children, Leese? I've never asked you. No children yet? Yeah. So, okay. I think it's important too, because I think the world is so different now. So I think it would be interesting to start off with you, Alicia, considering your clinical background. Can you tell us from your perspective as a provider for mental health, what you're seeing?
Okay, I will. And Cindy, please stop me, because when I start talking, I can go on, right? I can
I will.
half lecture. Okay.
Uh-huh.
One thing which
You gotta come more in the circle, though. You can't see you.
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
There you go.
so one thing which I just want to bring up, and I very, very often bring it up in conversations with my clients or when I teach. Currently I work on a psych ward as a clinical social worker with various populations. But also, like James and I are working in a halfway house, running like a spirituality group. And then I have been working in various settings, hospitals and others, private practice, et cetera, et cetera. One thing which is very important for all of us to understand is that according to psychological research, the human brain, doesn't matter, male, female, non-binary, doesn't matter. Human brain acquires maturity at the age of 25.
Right.
Right? 25. And, in our culture, in American culture, yes, we very often expect children as young as 18 to basically leave the house and live on their own. That is how many years before actually the brain achieves maturity?
7 years.
7 years. Right? So that's kind of like, one very important aspect. If children are coming, during that window, yes, very often the question is, are really the parents, young parents, mentally, yes, cognitively ready, able to handle parenthood, right? Another aspect which I wanted to bring up is that, again, in various cultures, as we all know, yes, in various cultures, there are different expectations for children to go and live independently. In Europe, that age is much higher.
Okay.
I think that right now, in Spain or in Italy, Greece, I mean, people as old as 32 years old are actually leaving the places of their parents. Now, why is that? The economic factor. Let's not forget that here in the US, the push, yes, for children to go and start working, find a job, take a loan, mortgage, etc., is really connected with our capitalism, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was basically a push to create consumers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? In Europe, where, for instance, the situation is a little bit different with the real estate, as we probably know. Yes. I mean, there is no vast open spaces that we can just develop, right? And build more and more houses, etc., etc. Yeah. I mean, the real estate is much more expensive. Right? It's beautiful, wonderful, but much more expensive. Then the families, yes, are kind of like handling themselves in a different way. And there's no way stigma attached to the situation that, children are still living with parents. Moreover, the multi-generational families, yes, we can see also, like, of course, outside of Europe, right? And it's a good thing, right? African nations, I mean, very much, or Asian, appreciate multicultural families. So I think that this whole thing, when it's healthy for a child to leave a home, it's really negotiable. Yes, it really depends from culture to culture. And I would say, as someone who's working as a therapist in multicultural contexts, let's not take the normal for granted. Our normal does not necessarily have to be normal. Another thing is that, again, children carry, adult children carry a lot of baggage very often from their own childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And the older we get, and especially when children are coming, grandchildren, right? Children to our children, a lot of stuff is sort of kicking in. I see it in the therapy big way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Certain, because what, when we have our own children, we try to reinvent or invent ourselves as parents, but vis-a-vis a model of our parents. Yes. If there were some painful experiences with the parenting that we felt neglected, that, for instance, like, some of us, I'm sure, experience different forms of abuse. Yes. Emotional, physical, financial, name it as you like. Right. And neglect. For instance, emotional neglect, because parents were emotionally unavailable. For sure. These all things will kick in when we will start parenting. And we tend to either model after our parents or just be just the opposite. But in both cases, our parents and their model of parenting is in the middle. Yes. Whether we are for or against, we always play with this. So, and then concluding, parenting of adult children is absolutely must. It's absolutely must, and it is really necessary for health of the adult children and adult parents. The relationship changes. There is always a lot of space for fixing something. Yes, and this is important. Yes, fixing, revisiting certain issues from childhood, and it's really beautiful, and it's really very, very important. The issue is also to what degree children are becoming involved into caregiving to parents. And again, the last thing, and I promise this is the last aspect I would like us to talk, is when we think about the time that we spent on parenting a particular child, yes, which might be, 16, 18 years, very often we may spend 18 or 20 years on caregiving of an aging parent.
Right.
That's a whole new situation. We didn't have it in history. Yes. It's just because the lifespan is longer, right? Then that kind of dynamic changes. So this is what I see in therapy. And sorry, guys, I used to be a professor, so
no, we appreciate it. It's interesting because you brought up a few things that made me think of something, because Like when my parents got married, they were very young. And they were both, younger than 25, that's for sure. And I know that the way they raised, I have three sets. There's three sets of us. There's my brother's Hassan and Frederick and I. And then later, Monica and Sadika came about. And then finally, he had Megan and Mackenzie. And my father was different with each set of kids, because as he matured, he was a different type of father to all of us. And so by the time I had my daughter, I wanted to be around him because I liked him so much better. I mean, I know part of that's being a grandfather too, but my dad, the way he switched it up from generation to generation within me and my siblings, he was a different father to each set. And I'm not saying I didn't love him as a dad. He was a great dad, but he was a different kind of dad when he was young and actually kind of bitter about not being able to, live a different kind of lifestyle. I don't think he wanted to be a father so young or married so young. And I think he acted out because of it, because he was young, and my mom, her mom got married when she was 18. So that was just the way you do it. But I think you're right that the maturity level is amazing. So when you're talking about, like, when I think about my daughter who just turned 24 in August, there are certain things I thought that she knew and understood that I'm seeing now. Like, okay, I'm not going to tell her business, but she did some whack stuff that I'm like, how in the world did you not know? I raised you. How did you not know to do that? But I decided I had to be at least more available to her. I thought it was, but when it comes to guidance to certain things, okay, because she didn't go to the doctor for years, right? Since she's been gone, she hasn't been at a doctor. She hasn't been at a dentist. And so I'm like, I had to tell you that? I thought you understood that. But had I been thinking, I would have suggested it. I just assumed she had insurance. She's going to the doctor. Of course she's going to the doctor. And now she's like dealing with issues that would have not been a problem for her had she been going, to the doctor. She's fine. Don't worry about her. But it's things she's taking care of now that I assumed she understood she needed to do. And I just think because of the way we were raised, in a totally different generation, that, I knew that. Got to go to the doctor. Got to take care of yourself. Got to, these things. And there's so many things now because I think we're so distracted by the economy and how we're trying to all survive that we're not taking care of ourselves in very crucial ways because we're so caught up in, I got to pay the rent. I got to, I don't know how I'm going to get a car. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how I'm going to do that because the economy is so messed up right now. And so it's affect our children don't have. When I got an apartment, when I started college or after college, I could afford it. I was in New York, one of the most expensive places in the world, but I could afford it because if I worked, they can't afford it now. Mm-hmm. Our kids cannot afford to live on their own anymore because it's crazy expensive. I know actors that have series on TV. They are working actors living in an apartment with 8 people because they can't afford to live by themselves. It's too expensive and they're making bank, but that bank is not enough to cover the standard of living. You're doing a series in LA. You're living in a place where a 2-bedroom is $3,500 a month. $3,500 a month to rent, not to buy, or to rent. So it's just a different world now. So the expectations of, you're 18, get out there, do your thing, be on your own it's not logical today, not with everybody. Yes, Renee.
I want to jump in. There was so much to cover there. What's your name? Leese?
Alicia.
Alicia.
You're absolutely correct. And I've said this for years. There's a couple of things to unpack here. One, you need a license for everything except for to have a children, right? And just because you have children doesn't mean that you're a parent, a mom. Anybody could be a father and mother, but it takes somebody different to be a mommy and a daddy, right? You need a license for everything else except to have children. I totally agree with you with the maturity level because I've always loved kids. I want to be a pediatrician. And I didn't want to spend all those years in school, but I've always loved children. And when I was 16, I wanted 4 kids, boy, girl. I had it all planned out, right? So you know what they say, tell God your plans and, you'll make him laugh. But when 25, I wanted to be married. I wanted to have kids. I wanted to do all of this. My mother died when she was 21, but thank God she had groomed me at a young age to know different things in life. So I was able to live on my own, but this is back in 1989. I'm 58 years old now. So times definitely changed, like Cynda said. However, by the time I got to 25, that I thought I wanted to be married with kids, I was living my best life. And I would not have been a good parent then, right? So I had, my husband and I, we got married at 32, had our son at 33 and our daughter at 35. I was emotionally and readily available for them, to guide them, to help them. I didn't think I was that old. Some people say, oh, you had your kids old, but I was mature enough that if something came on a weekend, didn't matter to me if I went or not, because I've been there. I did that. So I also said at 18, legally, I agree. I don't know where that came from at 18, because at 18, you're still in college. A lot of them are not doing that on their own. They're needing financial help and everything. So at 18, and some kids will be fine to throw that up in your face, then be on your own. 18 is a legal number. But I agree. At 25, sometimes nowadays, depending, because some kids think that they know it all already. And when we try to tell them X, Y, and Z, you're going to make your own mistakes, but you don't need to make the same mistakes that we made, right? So there was so much to unpack it. And what you said about growing up, my parents argued and fought like cats and dogs. If you ever saw the movie War of Roses, that was my parents. So you either become them or like them. I don't like confrontation unless I have to. I don't like, my husband and I had a disagreement, never in front of the kids, because I did not want them to experience that. However, my sister on the other end is very argumentative, one of them, right? So it depends, where I'm just like, okay, let's just work this out in a calm way, trying to solve it instead of being that rah-rah person. So it does make a difference. And at 25, yes, the brain matures in that way. However, I hope I don't offend anybody. Girls mature faster than boys, right?
Yeah, I think so. So.
Because I think my daughter, who is 22, is much more mature than my son, who's about to be 25, mentally thinking. Sense to anyone.
James, what do you think? What's your take on all of this?
Well, I probably would be speaking relative to the Twilight Zone in lieu of the fact that you all are much younger and more younger and are living a life that is so different from the way I lived my life, or back in my time, back in the prehistoric times.
Okay.
Who's laughing?
I am.
All of us.
Well, I don't have that much to say, only in that from a personal perspective, I was different. My way of living was different. The way I thought was different, my thinking, and my advent, my walk towards who I wanted to be or who I thought I should be, and et cetera and so forth, placed me in a different dynamic. My dad, as you know, Cindy and Alicia, my dad was a United Methodist pastor. and he lived according to the rules and regulations relative to the Christian church, and I didn't follow it exactly, but that emphasis really impressed me relative to what I need to do, how I need to grow up, et cetera, and so forth, but only to a certain extent, because I was very independent and I thought out of the box, even at a very young age, which means that what he said didn't have any fruition on what I thought, and I just did whatever I wanted to do in a very small way, in a different kind of way. And to the extent that when I got married and started the whole process of being married and being in that game of life, I'm a twice divorced person. I'm also a person who have adopted 5 kids, and I have 6 foster kids that I don't look on as being foster. I look on them as being my children.
And 2 biological.
I'm sorry?
And 2 biological.
And then, yeah, let me get there.
I'm keeping a score of your children.
And then I have 2, as is indicated by my better half or my half. I have 2 boys who are fathers and who are married themselves, biological, which means that I see the world from a different perspective. As a young person, I wanted to help people, et cetera, and so forth. All that Christian stuff that I may or may not be really inclined to now, but I did then. But that influenced me. That influenced my walk. That influenced me in regards to what I think is best and how I think a person should do. I just was not influenced to the extent that I'm an African American, so I have to go to church in a certain way, and I have to shout, I didn't subscribe to that, but I subscribed to a desire. I'm brief. I'll cut this off. I wanted to care for people, regardless of who they were, what color they were, whether they come from the ghetto or from mid-level living people or great people or people with a lot of money. It didn't make me any difference. I just wanted to care for people. And so that's connected me to a different way of thinking, a different way of life that influenced me.
So can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
So at the age you are now, with the experience you've had with all your children, do you think that, considering the way things are different today, do you think you would have rushed them off to go on and get out your house right now the way you might have when you were, a younger, in different time? Like, for instance, when Richie and Jomo were young adults back in the day, they both moved on and did their thing. But would you feel comfortable in this day and age right now, if you had children, to keep them with you beyond 18? Would that appeal to you? Would you consider that? Or would you be like you might have been back in the, the 80s, the end of the 80s, saying, okay, you're old enough now, it's time for you to, give me tough love and get on your feet and do your thing?
Well, personally, I do not see things that way. You need to move out and get on your own, et cetera. And so I don't see life that way. I see life relative to development and processing what we need to do and what we don't need to do, and how can I best suit this person, simply because my 2 biological kids were not with me, which means that that in which I believe that I should share with them as young boys and growing up to be young men, I wasn't there to provide that. And I wasn't allowed to be there, which put me in a whole new panorama of thought. And it was quite different. But my adopted kids and the children that I brought into my home, I did not have a time that they needed to move on or to do something else. I allowed them as much as I could. I allowed them to do whatever they feel that they can do at that particular time. So that's the way I.
So, well, first of all, I want to say this before, Leese, I come to you. Everybody that's commenting and with us today, thank you so much. I wish I could, I don't have my computer, so I had to be on the phone, so I can't see the writing. It's just far too small. But I think Leese is
for joining in.
Yeah, everybody that's joined us, thank you so much. And Leese and anybody else that can actually see the text, if you want to answer any questions or whatever, please do. So Leese, from your perspective, what's your opinion about this entire topic?
I'm actually seeking answers. Growing up, I moved out 17, a little bit in high school. I took the civil service test and started the government at my apartment. And I remember my mom, and that kind of hurt me, but I felt empowered. And I guess I've always been that way, but nowadays things seem to be different. Again, the economy, socialization with one another, those skills. And I wanted to get into children that take a left turn. And what I mean by that is find themselves in trouble. They can be raised by the best parents, but somehow or another, they find themselves in trouble. And I'm not speaking one time, two times, maybe 3, 4, perhaps career, if you will. How do you combat that?
Alicia, you want to give your thoughts?
Okay.
Considering.
Well, my thoughts would be, again, so important questions, and in this day and age, and again, I mean, our young adults, and our kids, which are teens, which are in 20s or 30s, maybe not, they're living in a different world, right? Temptations are different. I would say, just like, very briefly, we very often say on the word, reminding our patients, your cocaine today, it's not your grandpa's cocaine. Yes, your weed today is not your grandpa's weed, right?
Right.
And this is so important. Yes, because there is a lot of issues, and as you said, socialization is completely different. I would say in this case, it takes a village, right? As we know, it takes a village to raise a child.
Absolutely.
And it takes a village to show a grown-up child the ways. Yes, back home. Wherever that home is, right? Or back to himself or herself themselves, yes? So as a therapist in a situation like that, I would just say, be there, be available, but also leave the space for growing up. Because a part of a process of growing up is taking responsibility for one's actions.
Right. So finding a balance. You got to find a balance, because it empowers them to give them the opportunity to stand on their own feet and not try to make decisions for them, but at the same time be there for them for the guidance that they need, and that's if they want to take your advice or not. That's what I found. I'm like, my daughter will ask she will ask about most things. Unfortunately, she didn't ask about like life stuff like that, but she will ask about like relationship stuff and financial stuff and stuff like that. So, and I'll give her my advice, and she may or may not take it, but I give it, and that's why I moved back to the Midwest, because I did not want to raise my daughter alone. All of my family moved away from LA that was there. Her dad and I were there, but her dad kind of was living in another place, kind of, not physically, but I needed a village. I needed her to know her grandparents. I needed her because her dad's parents had passed away. So mine were the only grandparents she had. I needed her to know her aunts and uncles, because we can't be everything to everybody. One person can't be, it's easier for a person if they, like, for instance, I only had one child. So because it was just me on her, I could give her a lot more than if I had 3 or 4 kids. Then you got to separate yourself amongst. So if you're in a village where everybody's helping, then when I don't think about or whatever, my sisters can give her, or my brothers can give her. I couldn't go play basketball with her, but my brothers could, give her that kind of encouragement and guidance. I don't know everything. And so because we're all different with different gifts, I think it's very important that our village is intact. And as much as I'm, disgusted by the economy and things that are happening, I'm actually quite excited that it's forcing us to come back together. It's forcing us to because we could afford to spread out and fly away and never come back. But now people have to come back together to raise their families. If my daughter ever chooses to have children, I definitely want to be a part of her children's lives as a and that's why another reason why I came back again to the Chicagoland is to be in my nieces and nephews' lives, because I know what it's like to have one child by myself. I can't imagine having 4 and 5 like my sisters, and they're doing everything by themselves. And so I came back to this area so I could be a part of the guidance for them from a different generation and a different point of view. And my brothers are as active as they can be. They're very helpful. It's to me right now, it's forcing us to come back together the way things are. And I think it's going to probably get to the point where we're going to have our communities again, which have also disbanded over the years. We used to have community in our neighborhood. Everybody's mama was your mama. Everybody's auntie was your auntie. Everybody's daddy was your daddy. And if you messed up, they had permission to get in that. They had permission to say, hey, what you doing? I'm gonna tell your daddy. With these, over the last 15, 20 years, it's changed. It's like, don't you say nothing to my kid. Leave my kid alone. Everybody's all cloistered together by themselves, this little singular family. And the kids are the ones that suffer for that. Not, the kids suffer. And I understand privacy and the need for that and all of that. I think it's definitely important to have some autonomy, but I think our kids have suffered because they have not had that village. What do you think, Renee?
I say this? I think it also depends on the parent and the age of the parent, because the younger the parent, they feel like if something happens in school, they go straight to the teacher. Not real. I think a lot of these young parents find out how their kids were in school when COVID hit and they had to be on Zoom.
Yeah, they did.
Right? They have a better respect for teachers, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think because I too have a village, and I'm thankful for my village of my kids. My kids, my parents are gone. They've been gone. So they have my husband's parents who live 5 minutes away, thank God. And I have family that's, my family's also Jamaican. So there's certain cultural things that we don't play about, right? There's no walking back. There's no, I don't care how old you get, you still, as a child, you speak when you're spoken to and different things. Of course, we have them have their opinion, but there's a border that you do cross with respect. And I think so many young parents now want to be, I've heard young girls, I mentor young girls in the schools from going from middle school, going to high school, and you hear them talking about, oh, I want to grow up and have a baby so I could be best friends with my kid. What? No, that's a problem. And I do have a wonderful relationship with my children. You know, girls are different. So of course, you know, my daughter gets a little bit more information. It's just different with a girl. And I have my son and I love both of my kids, but the relationship is different. But kids nowadays are raising kids. They don't understand about the village. You know, they don't get that, because some parents, although the way we're raising our kids now, we want to sometimes, and we want to shelter them and cover them, but still we want them to be knowing what's going on in the world. And I think they have a balance of both. You know, they have a balance of both. Like my husband and I, we live here in Inglewood. It's beautiful, but we've also taken them. I grew up in New York. We've taken them to different areas so they can see what you have to be appreciative of it, right? I have a friend that has a domestic violence organization where we go and we've given up our Thanksgiving and Christmases and all this stuff to feed them and show them everybody doesn't live like you. Everybody doesn't live like you. But I think with Gen Z? Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
A lot of letters. I don't even know what they are. But with them, because some of them have a sense of entitlement, and I don't know where that came from. They just believe everything's at their fingertips. They believe, and again, depending on raising them, right? Because nobody owes you anything,
right?
And they're humble, but I see some kids. I'm just like, but I did this. Okay, we took them. We would take them away and award them for their honor roll, and we would always say we had to make honor roll or good grades because that's what we're supposed to do, right? So of course we give our kids a little bit more of what we didn't have. I don't ever remember going on vacation with my family. They just sent my sister and I on a plane to Jamaica every summer. It wasn't a vacation, just what they did for the summer. But I don't remember going to a resort, going to the beach with my parents. But we do that now with my family. So I think the way society has it, that everything is at their fingertips, you know, so I call it the microwave mentality, bing, and it's just here. You know, so I think as parents, before kids start school, it is not the teacher's job to teach them manners and respect and just compassion. That starts at home. That it is spills over to when they go to school. So that starts at home. And I think some young parents, again, they just throw their kids in the school system and expect the teachers to raise them. That's not how life works. Because little kids grow up to be little teenagers, grow up to be full-grown adults in that same mentality of entitlement. I've seen it happen.
Yeah, I actually work in the schools. So I know, I mean, the kids these days will literally, okay, I'll give you an example. So last year I was subbing for PE, which I do a lot of, and there was a young lady who was late. And it was my job, if someone was late, to send them to tardy sweep, right? That means you got to go sign in, you get a tardy in the computer system right away, whatever. And so I told the young lady, I said, okay, honey, I'm sorry, you're 10 minutes late. You're 10 minutes late. You have to go to tardy sweep. She goes, no. I said, excuse me? She said, no, I'm not going to tardy sweep. And she walked right on past me. No, I'm not going to get into nothing with no kids. I'm not going to try to force my will, but I am going to say something. So I said something to one of the teachers, and they sent her to tardy sweep. And she got on the phone with her mother and was telling her mother, they just sent me and they did this and that. And her mother comes to the school acting crazy. So of course she thinks she's going to get away with anything and to do anything because her mother is encouraging that.
Lisa, can I ask you, Cynda, can I ask you the age of the mother approximately, you think?
She was far too young to be a mother. I mean, I'm sure I don't know I can't honestly give an age, but I think she was probably maybe 16, 17 when she had that girl. You know what I'm saying? So they're besties instead of a parent helping a child, instead of saying to her child, well, what time did you get to class?
Right. No accountability.
No accountability whatsoever. And that is typical. We have parents coming up trying to fight teachers because their child did something that they weren't supposed to do, and the teacher tries to make them accountable, and there's no accountability at home.
Right.
So why should they? And then the teachers end up being afraid of the kids, especially in my school, which is like 70% Hispanic, about 28% Black. And if there's white teachers, racism is called out all the time when it's just them being adults trying to help these kids. And so, but I really want to kind of get back to the topic, which is raising, or how long does it take, and how do you be a parent to an adult? I think the fine line is guidance without judgment and letting them go free. Because I think some parents, don't care, right? Goodbye. And then some parents want to be the helicopter parents until a child is 40, telling them what to do about everything and questioning every choice they make. And, there's some things choices my daughters make that I just don't agree with. But once she was out of my house, I could tell her what I think, but what she chooses to do, she gets to choose. Even if I don't agree, I can't force her to do what I want her to do, even if I think what I want her to do is better for her. She gets to make the choice. And I think if you take the choice away from children that are adults, even though what you think might ultimately seem more responsible, more whatever, you can't force an adult to do what you want to do. And if you do, you take their power away. And say they do what you say and they never learn that lesson. Then they'll make it again and again and again. So I think you have to be thoughtful while engaging in and feeding into keeping your home open to your children. You also have to be thoughtful about allowing them to be adults. But if they're adults and they're acting like adults and they're making choices like adults, then you got to live like an adult. So say you got to move in with me. I'm not taking care of you financially. You're going to help. You're going to pay to be here. Like if my daughter moves in with me, she's going to pay her money, especially if she want to act like she knows everything. Okay, you want to act like you know anything, make all the choices, then you're going to act like it in every way. You're going to pay your third of these bills, because we're going to be a village. We're going to help each other. But you're going to be in a part of the dynamics, the financial dynamics. I'm not paying your bills. You paying your bills. You use power. You use water. You use all this stuff. I'm not trying to be, I'm not going to disempower you. I think that's not love. I think that's something else.
Right.
That's just my opinion.
Ms. Renee, you mentioned earlier that, or you spoke on being your child's friends. There are a lot of people with that ideology. Can you expound on your position with that? And then we can go around the room, but I wanted to get your perspective because that stuck with me.
So I want to be the kind of parent where they feel comfortable coming to me with certain issues or certain things, but it's certainly a border in how they talk. Like we're I don't know everything they do in the street, but you're not going to come in my house and they're respectful kids, but you're not going to come in my house talking to the way you talk to your friends. There's a level of respect there, right? And they should know that. I shouldn't have to say, hey, who do you think you're talking to? Because they should already know that. If a parent, I don't want to say right and wrong, but there's a level of respect that is an unwritten rule that they should know. But I want them to feel comfortable coming to me if there's a problem on the outside, if there's an issue that they have, without judgment. Now, I'm always going to be a parent, like you said, till I take my last breath. But it's also, okay, how did you end up in this situation? What choices? And ever since my kids were little, to this day, whenever they walk out the door, the last thing I say to them is, make good choices. Every day they hear that, make good choices. So that if they go out, whatever happens, I want them to hear, I want my voice to be the loudest voice in their head. The loudest voice in their head, that, hey, would my mother approve of this? Would my father approve of this? And I think when it's like that, you have to let them go. They both just graduated college. I don't see what they're doing. I didn't see what they were doing for the last 4 or 5 years, but they made it through, and they came home and they're respectful. So I just have to say this. My son gives me the pushback more than my daughter. And he always tells my husband and I, we're old school parents or old school. Well, guess what? Old school parenting still works, right? Because I know they have the Instagram, the Facebook, and the DM and all the emails and all this stuff. But I believe in verbal conversation. I still believe in verbal networking, face-to-face networking, and old school still works. My husband, my son just graduated from Hampton as an architect. Because of his mother, which is old school of talking to people, not just doing this, he just got a job as an architect in the town that we live in. Why? Because I talk to people the old school way of networking, right? So I don't know if I answered your question, but we have to let them fly a little bit, but we still have to make it where it's comfortable for them to come and talk to us. I don't know if that.
Yeah, I agree. I say fly all the way, but I can be under your wings. I can be that wind under your wings sometimes.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I don't want to take away your wings, but at the same time, and what I got from what you said, Renee, is it's all in the tone.
Mm-hmm.
It's all in the tone. Like I recently had a conversation with my daughter and I wasn't appreciating the way she was talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to remind her, I was like, you know what? I know you're a grown woman and everything. And I want you to feel comfortable. I don't want you to be afraid of me because you never have been. But at the same time, you got to revere my position in your life. And you can't talk to me crazy.
Right.
Don't talk to me like you talk to some fool on the street.
That's
and
right.
I didn't use those words, honey. They were a lot harsher than that.
Right.
Like, you cannot talk to me. It's crazy. Because
Right.
I'm your mama. I'm always going to be your mama. And you're going to talk to me with respect. Just like I talk to mom with respect, my grandparents with respect. You're not going to talk to me like boo-boo the fool. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I think you're saying in my words, that tone and the way the respect level has to be there.
Right.
Or I'm not going to listen to what you got to say.
Right.
Alicia, you wanted to say something.
Thank you, James. I saw your comment. Thank you, Alicia. I was reading the comments.
Yeah, I was just thinking what you said about the parenting style, and I totally agree. If I may just build on what you said, I would add that in this day and age, I think that so many of us are falling into prey to is that we want our children to like us. Yes, we want them to like us. Instead, they should do stuff so we can approve them, right? Yes, that's kind of the difference, right? And I mean, what Cindy brought up, right? That wonderful example, horrible but wonderful, yes, about the parents who are being besties, yes, to children, and kind of keep their backs and things like that. I think that another kind of thing which came to my mind is that let's pay attention to the language. Yes, English is, as you can hear, not my native language, right? So I live in 2 languages. But I would say that, that in English, we very often use a very economic-based vocabulary regarding parenting. I invest in my child. Yes. I'm investing money. I'm investing time in my child. Yes. So if I invest in my child, then my child is my investment, right? Then I want to have some profit, right? Because I'm investing, yes, to the truth. Yes, I want to gain. Yes. So usually I want to gain more than I invested, because if I gain as much as I invested, then I'm a loser because I broke even, right? Right? You know?
That's interesting.
And then if I invest, I also want to have my investment under control. Now, add to this expectations of parents. Right? And that so many kids are actually running away now. That I'm saying as a therapist, yes. A lot of kids are running away into that permanent immaturity. And when you start to unpack with them that very often, not always, but very often on the bottom sits that I feel like I'm my parents' project and I don't know who I am.
Right.
So I will always say love them, but loving does not mean own them.
Right.
So this is exactly what you said, Rana. Yes, that kind of like, just like let them go, because they are their own human beings. They're not the sum of my genes and my husband's, whatever, right? Genes. No, they're your children, right? They're their own people.
And there's times where I can say, like, I will always love them, but some days I don't like them. So if they act in a certain way, I'm like, I don't like you right now in this moment. I will always love you, but
right,
I don't like this person.
Right. Exactly. What's wrong with that? Right? I mean, the unconditional love is there.
Absolutely.
Right? But that love is actually allowing them to be grown up, which is extremely difficult. Yes, because
I don't believe that you can be unconditional love. There are conditions. You know what I'm saying? Because I love my daughter, but I will always love her. But I'm telling you, there are conditions on what I will accept. If she comes in my house disrespecting me, she ain't staying in my house.
Right.
She gotta go.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If she's not gonna come in and use all of, I don't care if I'm a millionaire, she gonna pay her way. Her own way, not my way, not money I give her way, but her own way, And to me, that is love. Yeah. Because that makes her grow up and be on her own. It's like Warren Buffett, that man, I respect them a lot. I don't know him, so who knows what people are behind the scenes. But I know with his kids, he did not give them. He drives a regular car, lives in a maintainable home. He ain't never had. He doesn't buy new clothes and stuff all the time. He's not cheap. He gives his money to charity. He's a philanthropist. He's all this kind of thing. But his kids, he was like, no. I'll give you a job. Where you got to work to earn, but I'm not giving you no money. But because I want you to be empowered to make your own. I'm going to give you the tools you need, the resources you need to grow up and do your thing.
But unconditional love does not mean indulgence. Right. And I think that would be that would be a great idea for another kind of maybe session to discuss how we understand love. Right? Yeah. Because unconditional love, it does not mean, an indulgence, right?
Right.
It may just be as well loving someone who is not fulfilling our expectations because, for instance, made the wrong choices. And then what? Yes. And then kind of like, coming back to the original thing is it's kind of easy to love them when they kind of walk the line. Yes. But if they don't, then it does not mean that I have to be a fireman coming to the rescue. Yes. But what do I do then? Yes. I mean, how do I love someone through my disappointment, my child? If my child disappointed me so much because, for instance, made the wrong choices. So, I mean, I totally agree with you, Cindy, 100%. But, that unconditional love does not mean kind of blind indulgence and only giving. That's not mind.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I
It's
told my kids,
it's unconditional in that I'll always love you, but I may not like you, like Renee
right,
said,
right,
and I may not accept what you're doing in my
right,
home. You can go do what you want to out there, but in my home, you're not going to do that. So in that way, it's not unconditional because I'm not going to take any other thing.
right.
James, did you have something? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I like to just say one thing, and then I'm going to be quiet and be the prehistoric person that I am. Thank you. One thing in my situation, and I'm using my situation, my past situation as an example, and the fact that Alicia and I both work in mental health. And so we run across all kinds of young people, all kinds of people in regards to who they are, what they are doing, where they're going, and what issue that they have relative to mental health. We have to deal with it. We have to help them navigate through that. And I'm moving on. I'll tell you something. There is something else other than everything that you all are saying. And what you are saying is absolutely good, true, positive, and it makes a lot of sense. And it really helps in this whole idea of family, what to do, how to do it, what should we do as parents, which is very good. And I ran across these kind of situations because the people that I brought to my home, my ex-wife and I brought to our home, who were people that, for the most part, had mental health issues. The young people that had mental health issues. I didn't know at the time exactly what mental health issues they were going through, borderline or but just could have been anything, depression, etc., and so forth. But you run across that issue, and the question is, what do you do if you are confronted with not just a bad kid, but with the kid who has an issue and that you cannot identify? Well, I lived back in the day, and so we didn't have access quickly to mental health facilities, et cetera, and so forth to go to, run to. However, there is something else in you, each one of you. When Cindy was talking, it reminded me of her when she was in China and with her daughter, and I would often think, I wonder how she's doing. I wonder how she is raising Sophia. I wonder what's happening with them. And I would see Cindy would write me every once in a while. I would hear from her, but it was a concern of mine because I know they both were in territory that they weren't quite used to. And I know it was a difficult thing. However, the difficulty is what I'm talking about. Difficulty and dependency. I had a child who had major mental health issues. At the time, I didn't diagnose or anything like that. I just knew that she had mental health issues, very, very, very bad. And she had a lot of concerns relative to her mother and father, in whom she did not know, et cetera, and so forth. Long story short, they told me from the school that she did not come to school. And of course, I jumped in my car, went to find out what was going on, and they said she just left with some little girl. So I went back home and just waiting for her to come back to our home. She never did. Then I heard from the little girl that she went with that she was having some difficulty in regards to a mental health condition, to the extent where the little girl said, I think she took a lot of pills and we don't know what to do. And I said, well, okay, where are you? And she just hung up the phone, which means that in this whole city, I have no idea where my daughter is. And I call her my daughter because I don't adopt any strangers. Where my daughter is, and I know she was going through a crisis. What do you do? How do you respond? Who do you call? Who do you go to? Is it prayer and all that? Do you go to prayer, which is not a negative? I didn't know what to do. This is what I did. And I'm saying that you all of us, all of you, especially you young ladies here, have the capacity for something else other than what you think and what you understand. The only precursor for that is what is you love your child, you love your son, you love your daughter. That love is the gauge that bring you together. Well, I jumped in my car in Indiana, Muncie, Indiana. I had no idea to where she was. I know she likes to be around white kids. And so I'm thinking, well, she must be in a white neighborhood. I don't know. It's a pretty relatively large city. Where do I go? I jumped in my car and I just drove. And I drove to a community that I've never been in before. I got out of my car, locked it up, of course, and I started walking. And I walked down the street. In a moment or so, I looked up and guess who I saw? Her. The front door was open and I saw her walk by the steps and it was her. I didn't even have any direction as to how to get out of that community. I had no idea where I was. And I knocked at the door and I said, is my daughter, and I gave her name. I'm not giving her name now. Is my daughter there? He said, yes, she is. And then they said she took 2 bottles of Tylenol. And we don't know what to do. And we didn't know who to call. And this is the mother talking. Of course, I knew what to do immediately, call the ER and all that. I did that, which saved her life. Well, what was that drove me to that house that I've never seen before, that community that I didn't even know the community was there, okay? That's how much in the dark I was in. What was, it wasn't me. It was the power of the love that I have for my child.
It's that energetic connection that we have, that energetic connection that is unseen and oftentimes unrecognized by the normal person that doesn't think in those ways. But it's following that heart connection that is as strong as the brain connection, as strong. They say we have multiple brains in our body. Scientists are now discovering that each, there are different brains for different systems in our bodies, and our heart brain is very active and runs a lot of the show. And so you did what so often we do and don't know we're doing, is it's following that connection, that energetic connection. But I want to say this right quick before we wrap up this topic, because we need to move on. And I would like to have like a wrap up, very short sum up from each one of us about this topic before we move on. But mine is this, having children is the issue, because I believe in evolution, and each generation passes on. But the question is, how are you evolving? Are you evolving down? Or are you evolving up? Are you evolving or revolving? All right, is that the word? Because that is absolutely what's happening when you have a child. Whatever issues you had as a child, you bring. If you haven't solved those issues in yourself that you had from your childhood, you're just going to continue to pass them on. And they might show and blossom in a different way, like drug abuse or things you were talking about, Leese. They might show themselves in those ways, but it moves us. So to me, in my opinion, you must, once you recognize that you have triggers, that you have issues, it's imperative that we all, wherever we are, find a way to heal our inner child, find a way to heal ourselves before, if possible, you have kids. or during your time with your children, because you pass it on. A quick quip. When my daughter was a child, she never smiled. And I asked my dad, why doesn't she smile? He said, because you don't. So I was teaching my child how to be sad. I was teaching her how to be somber, because I wasn't happy. And so once I realized that, I switched it up, and I was like, no, I got to bring the joy into my life. I got to bring the fun into my life, because I don't want to continue the succession. My mother was depressed, her mother, it's depression all through the line. I don't want her to be me. I want her to be better. So we have to heal ourselves, or our children will continue. Either they'll get better or they'll get worse from what we teach them, because they're learning. As soon as they're in the womb, they're learning. And then when that first 5 to 7 years, they're learning who to be based on who you are. You are their soul. You and both parents, if the parents are involved, are teaching your children who to be. And that's good or bad. Alicia, do you want to say a quick thing to wrap up your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think we had a great conversation. Parenting never ends. It goes beyond death, beyond the grave. This gentleman here, he is constantly reading his father's writing, including letters which his father wrote for him constantly. Even yesterday, he was reading to me something which his father wrote to me. I mean, his dad is as present in this household. The only thing is that he doesn't eat anything. Okay. So parenting never ends. And it's just so powerful thing to know, because we can always, we all are parents, right? So that was my wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you. James, do you have a quick wrap up? Or,
No, you
or
say,
did you already say it?
I think you are so funny. But there's something else. There's always something else relative to how you do and how you perceive what to do. There's always something else. And I would say to you that you don't have to try to do it. You don't have to look for it. You don't have to be in a certain position. It's there whether you like it or not. And you don't have to call on it. You don't have to call on Jesus and all that. Mm-hmm. You can if you like, but you don't have to. It's there for you, for all of us. I'm finished.
That makes sense. Renee?
I would say it's not what's taught, it's what's caught, right? And a lot of times, just like Lisa said about his dad, my mother's been gone for 36 years. And what I caught from her, I love to entertain. Cynda, you know that. I love company. I love making people. I like feeding people. I like, just people around me. I like good energy people. I like to give. I like to volunteer. I love to extend myself. I love people. I love doing things for people. I like entertaining and just having people around me. And I caught that from my mom, and my kids caught that from me. They're loving kids. They're kind kids. They don't have a problem volunteering or anything like that. When it's time to give away things, they give away good things. So I just think it's not what's taught, it's what's caught. And I always say people are watching. So what are they going to watch you do? Be careful of that, because people are always watching you.
Exactly. And Leese, do you have anything you'd like to say before we move on to our next topic?
Yes, as far as the village, just to revisit and reactivate. And real quickly, there was a sad story where a lot of young people are afraid to speak to their parents, and they rely on social media or AI apps. Really quickly, a young child, 16 years old, his parents are now suing Chat GPT because they allege that that program convinced him to end himself, basically. So,
I heard about that.
Yeah. So, getting them to love, like Miss Alicia said, and the friendship aspect, being able to speak to your parents or your caregivers, I think is very important.
Yeah, I agree. I heard that story and it was devastating. But this is something we could have talked the entire 2 hours for about, because it's important. But I think it's good to stimulate the mind and get people thinking, and teaching your own children, what you do, your children are going to do too. So you have to be conscious when you're a parent. You have to think about yourself and your own healing when you're a parent, because your children is going to continue what they learn from you, good or bad. All right, we're going to move on right quick. We have a town in Arkansas. They bought 150 acres of land, and they're calling it private property. And they've decided that they want this place to be all white. That's what it comes down to. That's just the short of it. They say a lot more than that. People that have the same belief systems, this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. And now they're trying to stretch into Missouri. So the question is, what do we think about this? What are our opinions about all white or all black or anything like that? What do you think? So I'm not going to start this one. I'm going to start it with James, because James was around when this was a very real thing. You were a child during Jim Crow, and I know you and Daddy and Alia had stories, and I remember certain things. But coming from a time and an era when segregation was very prominent, what is your perspective of us going back to that today?
Well, from my perspective, as I think in terms of what you're saying, and I appreciate it, is that if this group of people, and they are people, human beings, if they wish to isolate themselves and be on their own without interference with any kind of ethnic group, and I say, well, have fun. Enjoy yourself. It's later than you think, okay? And so I don't have any issue with that. I think it's okay. I think it's okay because it's what they want. The bottom line is that's what they want to do. This is what they believe. And you're not going to change belief systems. You're not going to change the way one feels about others. And it's not going to take a conversion into church or baptized or anything like that. Those people just do not. And I appreciate the opportunity to know so that I can stay away from that community.
Exactly.
So I won't slip. I won't be a byproduct of their desires and wishes. So yeah, that's the way I feel about it. And I'm sorry because I'm being very.
So I wonder, Leese, maybe you know the answer to this question. Is this a sundown town? Are you allowed to drive through this part of Arkansas without being accosted if you're not white? Do you know? Have your studies?
To be honest, I really no, I don't. To be honest, I really don't know. But from my critics and what has been said by the founder, I would not. And this is just me. I wouldn't drive by. I wouldn't speed by. But that's just me.
See, that's my only issue with it, because it's like, you should be able to do whatever you want to do. If you want to alienate yourself, go at it. But when you start saying, well, this is private land and we can't drive through, to me, that's the issue. That is when it becomes a problem, when people have to be afraid, or they got to drive the long way around because you might be in danger if you're there. It's one thing to say that you don't want other people from different cultures and backgrounds to live there, but to say that you don't want them to live there or drive through there, or you're going to be unsafe, that's the only issue I have about it. And I personally believe that the white American culture would be nothing without everybody else. They would have nothing. It's talking about milquetoast, talking about boring. What is their culture? Do they have a culture? And I'm half white. My mom came from this, right? Who were they without everybody else to give them a culture? They have stolen everything from everybody else's culture. They eat Mexican food more than Mexicans, right? They do their hip hop, and or their kids do hip hop and blah. So what is their music? Because all music came from somebody besides them. They didn't come up with country. They didn't come up with blues. They didn't come up with jazz. They didn't come up with anything. Who are they? So if they want to go and create this whole whatever it is, do they also eliminate the cultures that they stole?
Mm-hmm.
Do they do that?
Another thing that's fearful to me is teetering on the line of, I'll just say WS. I think we all know what that means. If that is
I don't.
W
WS.
supremacy.
Oh,
W
okay,
supremacy.
okay.
There are a lot of negative stereotypes that are being thrown out there. So if these towns are incorporated in other states, is that going to open up the floodgates for people to think, well, this certain population plays this type of music, or they don't know how to clean up after themselves? Because if we have to be honest, some people
Okay.
they don't believe in keeping their neighborhoods clean for whatever reasons. And I personally have a problem with that because I don't like seeing and hearing certain things. And that's just my opinion. So again, we have to be careful, to me, with stereotypes. And I think could be a danger.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Renee?
Well, I think a lot of things, Elisa. You know how I feel about a lot of things like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I have no plans on going to Arkansas. So for states in Arkansas, like your uncle said, have a great time. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you're going to do that, and like Elise said, I hope it doesn't spill out. But here's the thing. When we wanted to do it with Rosewood, with Tulsa, with Seneca Village, which Central Park is built on top of right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we want to have that, no, they didn't want us to have that. But it's okay for them to build their little lily white town or whatever. Go ahead. But just make sure that when we do ours again, because every single time that we did ours, they burnt it down. They whatever they did. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So just make sure that when it's time for us, let us have the same thing without bothering you. Right. So keep it there in Arkansas. I don't care. Here's the other thing that I have a problem with. And I like the WS that you said WS, because the more I read, the more I find out, don't call them that supremacy, because that gives them the feeling of that they are supreme to us, when that is not true. They try to whitewash everything from the beginning of time to the Bible to the way Jesus looks, right? Look at the depiction. Everything starts with us. And if you feel that way, stay out of the sun. Stay out of the tanning salons that you're trying to get to this melanin. Stay away. But what I think they fear, those people, what they fear is they fear that the uprising of us, which we know that we are the originals, okay, that they fear we're going to do to them what they did to us. When that is not how we are. They call us violent. They call us, they had the violence on us. And I think they fear that if we get power, which we still have because we never really lost it, right? Get back that power, that they are going to do what we're going to do to them, what they did to us. And that is so far from the truth. That is so far from the truth. But if you're going to do that, make sure that when we build our stuff again, or we have our stuff, don't come after us. Don't call us. Don't. And just one more thing, Cynda. Like you said, without us, our culture and a lot of things that they stole from everything, build it without us.
Right.
Don't use our foods. Don't use our culture. Don't use our melanin to get certain ways. Don't use our music. Don't try to get our hair. Don't use any of that. Go build yourself that little town and stay there.
Yeah, it's funny because, okay, that's why I specified when I started what I said by white Americans, because obviously Europeans of different sorts, all of Europe is so very different. You know,
Right.
they're culturally, the
Absolutely.
Polish to the English to the, huh? You're not
No,
different?
no, I'm different, but no. I mean, white Americans are basically brought everything what was worse in Europe. I'm sorry for saying that, okay? And in Europe, I mean, don't forget, we have hundreds of years in actually, and I'm speaking as a historian, yes, and you know, who taught history in college, etc., 19th century, you know, whatever. Cindy knows my credentials. That's part of the reason why I became a psychotherapist, because teaching history became so depressing. Yes, I mean, we have a lot of experiences in actually nurturing and conceptualizing hatred, right, and genociding ourselves. Let's not forget it, right? You know, whites against whites. By what? By the religious parameter in the past, and then national, ethnic in the, you know, the recent history. One thing, ladies, we have to be careful in these countries for actions like that, because in my opinion, these are attempts to re-segregate this country legally, economically. This is almost like building white enclaves, which are like colonies, if you like. Think, you know, metaphorically, like colonies of the whites, which basically, like, you know, have certain ideologies, right, certain concepts and stuff like that. And then these areas will probably, you know, in the ideal, will attract more investment, more banking, right? You know, better schools, etc., etc. Please watch how these ideas are developing, okay? Because ideas like that have been in this country for decades. And I think that now they're actually being manifested, being realized.
Because they have backing. They have backing
Absolutely, yes.
from the, my husband says the fish stinks from the head on down. So now that the person at the top, they're coming out their little holes and they're showing their heads. But you're right, they've always been there.
Yeah,
They've always been there. And now they got the green light.
exactly. And now more than ever, I always say, and James knows, now more than ever, think about what we can do. Yes, we can voice our discontent, Black people, you know, brown people, white people, whatever, right? But if we don't do anything, nothing will happen. So I always say, go to ACLU, put money, find some organization which is legal, and just, like, you know, try to fight it in a legal way and in a Congress as long as we can. We don't know how long we can actually exercise our democratic rights. And if you think that stuff like that is not going to happen in America, I am European, okay? I personally, okay, me, I went through revolutions, through collapses of different systems, okay? And then my family went through 4 with casualties. No country is immune. I don't want to kind of, like, you know, scare people or anything like this, but be watchful and you know, use the legal measurements. This is, I mean, it's just like, you know, look kind of like, you know, what is the ideological and the legal background of something like that. We do live in desegregated society. We live in multicultural society. If we stop defending it, they're going to steal it from us. Don't count that they're not. Of course they will.
Can I have 2 things right quick, and then I want to hear from James. One is a metaphor. Is that the word? Allegory? I don't freaking know. But purebred dogs versus mutts. Purebreds always die out. They always have major physical issues. And how do you keep yourself pure? Sisters and brothers, okay? You know what I'm saying? And that always leads to dis-ease. Variety strengthens. Variety makes us better. I'm not saying that you should lose your identity, but a mixture of identities, even say Africa, that's a whole bunch of different small places that were all very different, looked different, had different beliefs, but they strengthened when they were together, not lessened, not got worse. The pure always die out, and they always self-destruct, always. And then the second thing right quick is I wrote this little story that one day I'll write into a script. The human thing to do, human, not white, black, whatever. The human thing to do is to separate. We live in a place where separation is a part of our lives. White, black, him, her, whatever, whatever. We always find a way to discriminate against each other. If it wasn't color, maybe it's the eye color. Maybe it's religion. Maybe if you're tall or if you're short, if you're fat or if you're thin. We always find a way to say one is better than the other. It's like a Twilight Zone episode, right? It's like in this made up world, if your hair, in my world, if your hair was purple, you're supreme. If you were born with purple hair, and if you were born with blonde hair, you're the lowest caste. We always do this. We always find a reason. So if this all white town, say, I can guarantee you somebody's going to be ostracized for some reason, because that's what humans do. We always have to find a reason to make ourselves better in some way. And so it will implode. They might have the resources, they might build all of it, they might have the better schools, but eventually, and I do not believe it will take long, it will not last. It will fall apart because they will find a way to hate each other, because everybody, they need to find a reason to think they're better than them. It's just humanity that's led from the head instead of the heart. Mm-hmm. James, what do you think?
It's taught. It's just a taught behavior.
Yeah.
Well, yes,
what's
indeed.
That? Mm-hmm.
Indeed, I do agree with what you all are saying. I agree with it. I don't disagree with it. Just because I said let them go, I think that was more like my anger, etc., and so forth. Mm-hmm. However, I lived long enough to understand to a degree that people are going to be and do what they want to do, and they're going to live the way they want to live. And I am not saying that I wish they would live by themselves. I'm not saying that. I don't agree with that concept, but I agree with the fact, in my opinion, and that they have a right for their own perception, their own belief system, their own ideology. If we cannot change the ideology, if we cannot change the way they perceive culturally and believe culturally, then what do? We find a way to live better. And those of us who desire to live in a better life with each other, we will win the battle. We don't have to change anybody from what they believe. How do you change a person's belief that have been living like that for as long as they've been alive? You can't do it. You can persuade them that it's okay, it's all right. Black people are okay, they're all right. They're going to make mistakes, etc., and so forth. But living in these times that we're living in now, people are going to do what the hell they want to do. And people are going to believe what they want to believe, because there's other things that goads them to believe that, relative to money, capitalism, et cetera, and so forth, or just cultural differences. They're going to do that. And they're going to think that, even if there are neighbors. And I'm not saying that that I believe in that. I'm saying that they should have the right to do it and to believe. And that if there's change going to come, it's going to come from something bigger than our complaints and our fights and our demands on democracy, demands on cultural togetherness, in my opinion. And I don't have to be right on this. You know, I'm not trying to be right, but I'm trying to say that we need to do something relative to what we believe in and be as strong and as powerful in what we believe versus what others may believe. I believe we have a tendency to believe that we can't do it, that we need this and we need that. No, we don't. We need life. We need love. And if love and life doesn't do it, then I don't know what will do it on this planet.
I think you're right. I think that people should have a chance and an opportunity to live the way they want to live. Although, y'all remember that movie, The Village, by M. Night Shyamalan? They did that. They lived in that community. If you haven't seen it, you should. And they lived in this community. It looked like you think throughout the movie that it's taking place in puritanical days and all of that, but you come to find out that they're living right now. They just did this. They bought up this huge amount of land, and then they tried to live the way they think, the pure way to live, and it imploded. It did not work because expansion happens. When you live, you're going to expand. And you cannot expand living the same way. In this movie, they didn't have cars. They didn't have electricity. They didn't have, because they believed that to live life the right way, they had to do it that way. And the kids were going crazy. It's our natural instinct to expand. That's what we're creators. In God's image means we create. That is our role of being here, is to create ultimately in some way, to expand. And you cannot keep things the same way without somebody deciding, no, this ain't enough for me. We got to expand. And so if they can do what they want to do, but I already know what's coming for them if they do it. It might take some resources away from us, but just like James said, we don't need their resources to thrive. We don't. Okay, you take away the grocery stores in my neighborhood, then I'll start a freaking garden, right? And then we come together as a community. Right. You don't give me the best options when it comes to buying. Okay, I'll buy from the neighborhood store, the boutique, where the ladies out there, seamstresses making clothes that are different from anything else. We are survivors. That's why we thrive. We are so much better off than we know we are. Yeah. We think we're not like them. But ultimately we're so much stronger because we have had to expand. Right. We have had to survive. When you have to survive, that fire makes you grow and be better. That's why we're the best at everything we do. That's why they don't want us to do anything. They try to keep us out because we always end up being better at it because of the struggle, because of the challenge, because we are forced to expand. That's why they don't grow. That's why they have to steal from other cultures, because they try to do everything this one way. And that means they slow down their own expansion. So it's self-destructive.
Mm-hmm. Real quickly, Mr. James said he didn't have a problem with it. I don't either. But to piggyback on what Miss Renee, said, when you do that, are you, and this is just a question, fostering hate that's already there that can branch off?
It can't, but yeah, I agree with you. The difference is that I believe that they can't win.
Me
And
too.
by my simple belief, I believe that they can't win. And when they fall, when and if they fall, I want to be there to love them despite their situation. I
Yeah.
have to maintain my ethics and my belief for them, even though they cannot appreciate it. I'm going
Yeah,
to be
I agree. And I think that their fall comes from their children, because their children are not going to want to live like that.
no.
And their children are too savvy they can get rid of everything. The kids will find a way to find out what's happening beyond. There'll be some kids that'll stay with the true and tried way of being white, pure folks. But there's going to be somebody that wants to expand that's not going to listen. They're not going to listen. The kids today, if you listen on social media, sometimes you come across some gems. These little kids, man, they are preaching. And I know their parents aren't thinking the way they're talking, or their grandparents are talking. These little white kids are
Yeah.
preaching to anybody that will listen about how their own expansion is being stifled by their hatred. And it's a self-hatred ultimately. If you are so weak to think you can't be around other people and live the life you want to live, how weak are you? You got to go hide. You got to go be in your own place in order to maintain who you are, because living next door to somebody black that you don't like because they're black is going to rub off on you. How weak are you? I just don't. I just think it's a loss. It's only going to lose.
But they won't see it as a loss, right? They won't see it as a loss because they've been brainwashed again to think that they are WS, right? They have been brainwashed to think. That's why, what's that saying? You take the weakest or the lowest of their race and compare it even to the highest of ours. They are still going to think that they're better because that's the way they were raised, their skin color. But society has done it through life. Angels are good, black and white. The dark is, there's bad things happening in the dark, but during the day, you get married in a white wedding dress. White is purity. This society has been going on. I said, but what they don't realize is our strength, and they never did. They never understood our strength, going back to slavery, going back to everything that we've been through. They never understood our strength. They gave us the worst part of the chicken or the pig, and we made delicacies out of it. We made meals out of it, right? Because everything to them was ownership and money. We have survived without money for a long time, right? When they say money, look how many rich, wealthy people are not happy, right? In 1929, when the stock market crashed, and they're jumping off buildings and committing suicide because they equate happiness to money. When you can take the poorest of Black and brown people and you see that love they have one another, they could be in one bedroom apartment, and I've known some, and they had the happiest childhood because that they can't break us. And they get so mad at that they can't.
I think that's the key. What you said is what they think.
Right.
What you think is not what is. It's
right.
just a perception.
Feelings
you think you're better.
Feelings aren't facts.
Yeah. You just think you're better. Thinking is not being. Mm-hmm. Thinking is not being. And I think that these new generations that are being born are coming here evolved already. And they are not going to go for it because they want to actually be it. They want to actually be a supreme being, which we all are in our own right. Every single one of us,
right.
Everybody is, right? It's just we have been forged in fire, and so we're strong. Once we realize it, people of color realize it, I believe that everything is going to change, and it doesn't matter who has the money, because the money is just energy. It's just energy. It's
That's
just,
right.
it can be used in a great way or not. It can be used either way, but it's just energy, and you cannot stop people that are forced to be creative. And that's who we are. We have been forced to be creative. And that's why almost every invention, when you go back to it, was made by us, stolen by them.
That's right.
So even though they're getting the credit, we are passing down the genetics to our children, because we're nuts and we're growing and we're better because we are being forged and fired. Alicia, I would love to hear your thoughts. I mean, from where you were to where you are now after this conversation.
I think that, that talking about it is extremely important. Acting is even more important. I totally agree with you, Cindy. Money is energy, but money is power. And law is energy and is power. And I think that we are living in this day and age that we have to be absolutely super vigilant about what's going on in the world, to protect what we have, to counter what is happening to us. Because you're right. America, from European perspective, right? American culture is Black culture, right? It's a mix. Yeah. Where would be the music? By and large, not only pop music in the 20th century, if not, Black Americans, right? Black Americans have, a Nobel Prize winner in literature, right? Toni Morrison, et cetera, et cetera. The input is not questionable, but the struggle for power and control is real. And I would say only one thing: if we lose protection of the law, then we will be really powerless. One thing is that kind of place which we were talking about, in Arkansas, which of course, I'm disgusted with this, right? Of course, my perspective is different. But here, James and I are speaking from Indiana. I know, Cindy, you are speaking from Chicago. Yes, we're speaking from different locations. But as we learned, and this is not like a hearsay, it's just confirmed, outside north of Indianapolis, they're going to build one of the biggest detention centers for undocumented immigrants. Okay. So in the state of Indiana, the local government, the state government is moving a lot of resources from social services to kind of pay for that. Is it going to be private? Probably is going to be partly privatized, because that's kind of the vibe of this economic vibe, ideological vibe of this administration. Guys, it may be one of the biggest concentration camps, literally 4 or 3.5 hours away from here. Are we comprehending that? Are we comprehending who can actually be next to place in that place? People who will maybe deprived or stripped of their civic rights.
Homeless people.
I'm sorry?
Homeless people.
Not only homeless people. I'm a first generation immigrant. I may just be there. Okay? Some Black folks from Chicago, right? Which maybe just round up and kind of ship there by kind of what is going on. You don't know. Well, no, it's not like you don't know. We don't know what will happen, but we know that they're operating on the basis of a very clear template. Read history. Look what was happening in the first part of the 20th century in Europe, because these guys have a template. It's scary to see how they go by the book. Okay. So I would say, please, all of us, be vigilant, stay vigilant. Yes. And see what is happening. Because if we're stripped of the rights, And if we're cut from the situation, like, to make money, it will demoralize us. If we're stripped from the rights, we're absolutely vulnerable. Who's going to argue for us? The United States were pulled out of Human Rights Convention in January this year. You know that, right? Who? No one. They can do whatever they want with us. And you know what? They won't hesitate. Then what they won't hesitate. So that was my speech at the end.
Mm-hmm. Even I have to say with this, and thank you, Lisa. Little things like you said, pay attention. This cashless bail now that they want to get rid of. Who you think that's for? Mm-hmm. Get rid of cashless bail. Who do you think that's for?
Yeah.
Right. So little things like that is going to affect us. And I don't mean just Black and brown people, poor people. It's just there's class, there's racism in so many, there's classism, there's racism, there's it's
sexism.
Yes, sexism. There's so many different ways. But that is geared to hurt the underprivileged. Because how else, God forbid, something happens, cashless bail? Like that is, it's all little things here and there that they're saying. And
can I say this? I only want to spend 5 minutes and then we'll wrap it up, or 4 minutes even. But Leese, you have been in DC, going and seeing firsthand and sharing it with your public, the people that watch your platform, what is going on in DC. How does this connect to what you've been seeing?
Spot on, Miss Alicia and Miss Renee. You just said something very poignant. It was said allegedly that the homeless population, and we know it's just not one color. If you watch my videos, they're not. So if they cannot get them off of the street, some of them don't. I repeat, they do not want to go to shelters. There's another alleged option of busing them off. Problem. How do we know if there are facilities to receive them? What's really going on? So these measures, unbeknownst to many, are already in place. It's just when the invisible dog whistle is blown.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right. And I'm glad you said that, because he blew that invisible dog whistle back in 2019, 2020, right? Stand back and stand by. And he has a habit of having different types of dog whistles. So I totally agree with you with that. And we have to listen. I always say, listen to what's not being said.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
But I will say this, from my optimistic point of view and perception of things, I'm not afraid. I have no fear, because I know that in fear you can do nothing.
That's right.
You can change nothing. I say take it for empowerment, the things that are happening, because I believe personally that this is the last screams and yells from a dying system. I believe that's all this is. They're trying their best to implement things to go back to the way they want things to be. And they're losing this battle. They're losing it. And it's too late. It's too late. I don't care how much they scream and yell and do things undercover. It's too late. You cannot make this a white nation. Right. It's a white rich nation, because they don't care about all white people.
Right.
Just white people with money, right? They don't give a crap about white people that ain't got no money. So I just think it's the last gasp of a system that is dying, that has been running things in this imbalanced world for the last several thousand years. And I believe that it's shifting, and they're just fighting to keep it imbalanced, because If it's in balance, that's when the small few have the most and everybody has nothing. And I just think that is shifting, and to stay, my way of living is to stay out of fear, do what you can. Don't be afraid of what you can't control. Don't be engaged with media that's going to keep you in fear and so stagnant and stuck because you don't think you can do anything. I think it starts with the individuals, each individual, and growth, and then your families, and then your communities, and then your towns, and then bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think things are going to shift in a massively huge. I believe this world is going to look totally different in the next 3 to 5 years. I don't think it's going to look the same. I think this country is going to be a completely different place. I think it's going to be some hard times to get to there.
Yeah.
But I think it's all going to be, I think we're going to win the war, is what I'm saying. We might lose some battles, but I think we're going to win the war. And I understand, Alicia, your fear coming from your perspective, your background, your history. But I think those systems that put your family in those positions are dying. And that's why they're fighting so hard right now to take it back. I believe that. And I know you deal with things from a point of view of logic. I deal with things from a point of view of faith and my spirituality and connection to energy and God, and everybody has their thoughts. But I say that even if your history tells you the possibilities are scary and bad, that you have to go into your fight and do what you need to do to be proactive in your way, but minus the fear of the past.
Yeah, and thank you very much, Cindy. I do not fear, believe me. Okay, I saw tanks on the streets. I saw the military on the streets before I turned 10.
Right.
So I do not fear. I live in this country and I do not fear. But I am very, how should I say, sometimes disheartened to see how unconcerned we are very often to the changes which are happening around us. And I think that we should be less, more awakened, more aware, okay? And less slumber. It's not fear. No, I do not fear. But I think that fear, even like imagining that we will not live in this country and this country is not going to be the American dream embodied, and democracy and all of these ideologies which Americans were kind of raised with, right? Because let's face it, I mean, you're products of a certain ideology, right? And that is part of the problem, that so many Americans are not able to step outside of their ideological stance, right? And then see that things, as you are absolutely right, changing. And with this, I totally agree with you. I think that this is
and to be clear, I didn't say you were afraid. I said people should not be afraid.
Yeah. People should not be.
There's a difference. I'm talking general here. I'm not talking about you. Yeah. I'm talking about people that haven't had your background, that they can't change anything in fear. They got to be active.
Be active. Look at this guy, okay, where we're talking about parenting. You remember started, right? Look at this generation, okay? And they're still with us, thanks God, okay? Learn from them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been a vigorous, beautiful conversation, a needed conversation. I hope many people hear this. If you're listening in, please share and follow this platform, share this content, because this is a conversation that we all need to be having and being proactive in being proactive, because sitting around just worrying about stuff, there's everybody has a capacity to engage at some level in their own change. So everybody, please give.
Before you go, please.
Yes, we have 2 minutes.
I know you got 2 minutes. When you talked about fear, we have 2 acronyms, and I've taught and I've been taught to choose your heart. You can have fear, which is face everything and run, or fear, face everything and rise. Choose your heart. Choose which one you're going to do.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Please, Renee, tell people if they want to follow you, how they're able to do that.
Sure. Thank you. On Instagram, I'm at Inside Beauty ICU. Just the letters Inside Beauty ICU. I'm on Facebook as Renee M. Smith-Wilson.
Yes, and everybody, as smart as she is, she's just as beautiful on the exterior. If y'all need makeup and stuff, she know what she's doing. I wish I had the money to get her to style me because she's fine and I want to look like her when I grow up. So if you have any interest in that kind of stuff, you know, she's amazing at what she does. She's a Mary Kay agent, and like I said, when my money's right, we're gonna be working together because I want to tell her to dress me because I don't know how to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming, and I expect you to come back again. We really enjoy your opinions.
Yeah,
James, would you like to, Alicia, you don't want to tell us how can we support Numa?
Oh, well, yeah. I would say that, you know, that Numa would ask you to support two causes. One is ACLU. Please consider donating to ACLU. These people are doing, as we all know, very, very important job. The other is please consider supporting another non-for-profit which is run by our friends. It's called INARA, I-N-I-R-A, INARA, okay? INIRA.
INARA.
Okay, you are better in English spelling. And it's run by James's friend, a former CNN foreign correspondent, Arwa Damon, and they are operating right now in Gaza.
Okay.
Providing help, medical help for everybody who needs it. Please, this is really valid. And like, you know, we know these people, they are doing a great job. Please support them. Thank you. Thank you
so much. James, do you have any, if people want to reach out or pick your brain or whatever, how can they do it?
No, thank you. Alicia spoke for me. She and I work together. So
okay.
It's my pleasure to be with you young people today. And
thank you.
Future, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. And you can follow me, share my content, listen in, whatever. I'm on all the socials. Cynda Will is best on Instagram and Facebook, and on TikTok, Cynda Williams 615. Please follow and share. Leese, do you have any final words as we say goodbye?
Nothing than that. Thank you all so much for this engaging, thought-provoking, and educational conversation, and I look forward to many, many more. And thank you to all of the listeners that were here live and those who took the replay.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Please come back next month. We'll be announcing our next month's topics and our show. Please follow and share. This platform is important because we're not just yelling and screaming on here. We're talking about solutions. So, and Leese is doing amazing work out there on her platform. Please subscribe to her channel and let's change the world, starting with ourselves. Love you guys so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Please.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Peace.
Thank you, everyone. Be safe, well, and you know the rest. Be healthy.
All right. Love you.
Love you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.